Please help. They're killing my dog." The voice pierced through the cold night air, trembling and desperate. Officer Daniel Reeves slammed on the brakes, heart pounding, as he jumped from his car. Down a narrow alley, a little girl in a red coat stood screaming, tears freezing on her cheeks. "Please," she sobbed, pointing toward the darkness. "They're hurting him." Daniel sprinted forward, and what he saw made his blood run cold. A group of teens surrounded a whimpering German shepherd, kicking, laughing. "Police!" he roared, charging in. That single moment, one cry for help, one act of courage, would change 3 lives forever. The snow was falling harder now, thick flakes swirling under the glow of the streetlights. Officer Daniel Reeves tightened his scarf and stepped out of his patrol car. The radio crackled in the background. Disturbance near Maple Avenue. Possible domestic call. But when he arrived, the street was empty, silent except for the wind. He almost turned back until he heard it a cry. Small, frightened, and raw. Daniel followed the sound to an alley between 2 abandoned buildings. There, in the dim orange light, stood a little girl no older than 6. Her red coat was dusted with snow, her eyes wide with terror. She clutched a broken leash in one hand, tears freezing on her cheeks. "Please," she sobbed, pointing toward the alley's end. "They're killing my dog." Daniel's heart lurched. Without another word, he ran past her, the echo of her voice slicing through the cold air. The snow muffled everything except the faint, agonizing whimpers ahead. He didn't know what he'd find, but as a father, and as a man who'd seen too much cruelty, Daniel knew one thing for sure: whatever waited for him at the end of that alley, he wasn't leaving without saving it. Daniel's boots crunched over the frozen ground as he sprinted down the narrow alley. The sound of whimpering grew louder, sharper, followed by cruel laughter. Turning the corner, he froze. 2 teenage boys stood over a small German shepherd, no older than a year. The dog's fur was soaked, one paw twisted, a thin rope cutting into its neck. One of the boys raised a stick to strike again. "Police!" Daniel's voice thundered through the alley. The boys spun around, faces pale. "Get away from him!" They didn't hesitate. They dropped everything and bolted into the dark, their shadows disappearing into the snow. Daniel rushed forward, kneeling beside the trembling dog. "Hey, easy, buddy. You're safe now." The shepherd flinched but didn't pull away. Moments later, the little girl from before came running, breath hitching. "His name's Max," she cried, falling to her knees. "Please don't let him die." Daniel gently wrapped his coat around the injured dog, feeling its rapid heartbeat against his arm. "He's not going anywhere," he said softly. "Not on my watch." He lifted Max carefully, shielding him from the snow as he carried him toward the patrol car, completely unaware that this rescue would change all their lives forever. The sirens wailed faintly in the distance. As Daniel pushed through the clinic doors, snow still clinging to his uniform. "Emergency case," he shouted. The vet techs rushed forward, taking Max from his arms. The little girl stumbled in behind him, her red coat soaked through. "Please don't take him away," she cried. Daniel knelt, holding her shoulders gently. "They're going to help him, sweetheart. He's safe now." Inside the exam room, the veterinarian examined Max's wounds. Deep cuts, a fractured leg, bruises across his ribs. "He's been beaten badly," she muttered. "But he's a fighter." Hours crawled by. Emily. Daniel learned her name between tears, refused to leave the waiting bench. She clutched the broken leash like it was her last piece of hope. Daniel sat beside her, watching her small hands tremble. "He's all I have left," she whispered. "My dad's gone. Mom's in the hospital. Max is the only one who listens." Daniel felt a lump in his throat. When the vet finally emerged, her voice was gentle. "He'll make it." Emily's sobs turned to laughter as she threw her arms around Daniel. For the first time that night, he smiled. He didn't know it yet. But saving Max wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning of a much deeper rescue. Morning light spilled into the clinic, soft but cold. Daniel hadn't slept. He sat near Max's kennel, watching the dog breathe steadily under a blanket. Emily slept curled up in a chair beside him, her tiny hand resting near the cage. For a brief moment, everything felt peaceful, until the door opened. 2 officials stepped inside, clipboards in hand. "Officer Reeves?" One asked curtly. "We're with Child Services. The girl's been identified. She'll be placed in temporary care." Daniel's heart sank. She can't leave her dog, he said. The woman sighed. The animal will be taken to the city shelter until her situation is reviewed. Emily woke just in time to hear those words. No, she screamed, clutching Max's collar. You can't take him. He'll think I left him. Her voice cracked, filled with terror. The shelter staff hesitated, but the order was official. Daniel tried to reason with them. They need each other. Let me help. But the van door still closed, and Emily's cries echoed through the snowy parking lot. Please, don't let them hurt him. That night, Daniel sat alone in his patrol car, snow falling quietly against the windshield. The radio hummed softly, but all he could hear was that little girl's voice. Haunting, desperate, unforgettable. The next morning, Daniel couldn't shake the sound of Emily's cries. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face pressed against the shelter van window, her hand reaching out as they drove away. He tried to focus on work, but his thoughts kept drifting to the girl and to the dog who'd risked everything to protect her. Finally, he made the call to the city shelter. This is Officer Reeves. I need an update on a German shepherd named Max. There was a pause. Then a tired voice replied, That one? He's aggressive. Scheduled for euthanasia tomorrow morning. Daniel's pulse quickened. You can't do that. He's not dangerous. Sorry, officer, the voice said coldly. Decision's final. Within the hour, Daniel was in his patrol car, lights off, heart pounding. He drove straight to the shelter. Inside, Max sat behind a steel gate, ears low, eyes defeated. Daniel approached slowly. Hey, buddy. Remember me? Max's ears lifted at his voice. He pressed his nose against the bars. Ignoring the protests of the staff, Daniel signed the release forms himself, taking full responsibility. You'll answer for this, the director warned. I already am, Daniel replied, leading Max out into the falling snow. To a promise I made, to a little girl who never stopped believing. When the foster home door opened, Emily froze. For a moment, she thought her heart was playing tricks on her. But then she saw him, Max, limping through the doorway, tail wagging weakly, eyes locked on her. Max, she screamed, tears bursting from her eyes as she ran forward. The dog let out a soft whine before collapsing into her arms. The two clung to each other as if the world outside no longer existed. Standing in the doorway, Daniel smiled faintly, his badge glinting under the porch light. The foster mother looked at him in disbelief. You brought him back? I brought them back, Daniel said softly. News of the rescue spread through the town like wildfire. The story of the crying girl and the officer who defied the rules captured hearts everywhere. Letters poured into the station, hundreds of them. Some called Daniel reckless. Most called him a hero. When the department held his review hearing, the chief simply placed a folder on the table and said, Sometimes the law follows the heart. Daniel was cleared of all charges. Weeks later, he visited Emily and Max. The little girl ran out with a drawing, 3 stick figures, her, Max, and him. At the bottom, in shaky handwriting, were 3 words that made him smile through tears. You saved us.